Hi, my name is Jodi Lyons. I'm your host of Your Need to Know. And today I am thrilled to be joined with my friends from the Private Access Network, Randy Domolky and Scott Schedler. And we are going to be talking about entrepreneurs, investors, and what they both need to know to put together a good deal. So I am thrilled that you guys are here. And before I forget, if you need more information, you can find them at www.privateaccessnetwork.com. So thanks for sharing your expertise today, guys. Glad you're here.
Oh, thanks, Jodi, for
Happy to be
having
here.
us.
Yeah.
Great. So first things first, I've heard that there is an ecosystem and that it involves investors and entrepreneurs. Could you just explain a little bit about what that means? It seems like it's just a buzzword. So what is it really?
Sure, absolutely. I would probably, divide the world into, people like to think of it as a kind of a dichotomy of the companies on this side and the investors on this side. It's actually, as you said so aptly, an ecosystem, right? So there are the entrepreneurs, they're the other executives of the company. They're all going to help craft and tell the story to the investor community. There's also referral people and intermediaries who are going to introduce people like ourselves at the Private Access Network to companies.
Okay.
And those could be your friends, those could be your family, those could be your vendors, those could be your customers. And all those players are part of this ecosystem, and you as an entrepreneur have to work really hard to find and impress and maintain relationships with all of these people, because as opposed to a deal being completely transactional, right? Sometimes it'd be really easy if it was like applying for a credit card and you just filled out a form and you found out yes or no, and hopefully you found out yes. For good or bad, it's a way more involved process that does involve this ecosystem. And I think the hidden secret, if you will, is that if you can build all these relationships and you can leverage them all to get a deal done, now you have a whole family of people. You have a whole ecosystem of supporters that are going to help you take on what I describe as a Herculean task of growing your baby from a kernel of an idea to a very small, to a small, to a medium, and if all goes really well, to a large size business.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
I need to pile on to what Randy just said, because I got to tell you one. So it was great to have worked at the Motley Fool, and when I got out of the Motley Fool, it was great to have met Randy, because Randy is dialed in to this ecosystem. He's been doing this for 17, 18 years now. And he is already connected by virtue of all that time he spent with almost 1,000, probably even more than 1,000 entrepreneurs and thousands of angel investors and venture capitalists. And that brings to bear a tremendous amount of wherewithal for the Private Access Network, both in serving its investors, but by allowing us to get good deal flow and to get the expertise we need to figure out which of those deals are winners and which are not likely to be winners. It also helps us with our companies, because we have this tremendous network of potential other investors or advisors or consultants or contractors that we can bring to bear to help these companies have a much higher chance of succeeding. And I have to tell you, that's actually happening. So the ecosystem thing is fundamental to private access, and I'll just underline the word for what we're talking about here, network.
I love it. And actually, you raised a good point. It's a network, and it sounds to me like it's also a team.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. So in my world, team members know what they're doing and can work together. So that's oversimplified. But what kinds of people do you think make a great team in this particular world? So the entrepreneur's coming to you and saying, I have an idea. Who do you want to see on that team?
Sure. Well, first of all, Jodi, I would say the kind of team you want is more like a baseball team than a tug-of-war team. Okay. Right? In tug-of-war, everyone kind of has the same job.
Right.
Maybe you're the anchor or you're that guy in the front, but you essentially are all pulling the rope in the same direction, right? In a baseball team or football, everyone has a very specific position, but yet you all have the same uniform on and you all have the same goal as a team. So I think that's important to recognize, that you, whether you're the CEO or the COO or the CFO, you have a very specific job within the confines of a company that has a uniform goal. And so we look for CEOs and entrepreneurs who recognize that and can come right into a meeting and say, look, I am the quarterback here, I am the coach, I am putting this team together, but look at all the specialists that I have hired and recruited to play what I know are very specific roles.
Okay.
So those are, absolutely the best kind of meetings for us to come in when the entrepreneur says, oh, let me bring Jim in from sales, and let me bring Steve in from marketing, and let me bring Ginny in from accounting.
Okay.
Right? Then we go, oh, this is great. And what we don't like is for someone to say, oh, no, we're on the tug of war team, so I'm the same as any other executive at the company.
I do it all, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you could talk to anyone and they tell you the same thing. We say, well, that doesn't sound like you're really leveraging people's expertise and unique background. That sounds like you built a bunch of clones, like those cutout dolls where you expand the whole thing and everyone looks the same. You're not going to beat GM or GE or Intel if all you have is the paper cutout dolls of executives.
Right.
I agree, and I'll just add that to the extent that any or all of the key players on the executive team have been there, done that before, in terms of whatever been there, done that means for what that company's trying to achieve, it helps to take the risk out. So a big part of what Randy and I do is we try to take the risk out of this. These decisions, 45% of which fail. Not 45% of our decisions fail,
right,
but 45% of these startups don't make it. I mean, it's probably higher than that, is my estimation.
Okay.
And so, big part of Randy's job and my job is to de-risk the situation.
Okay.
A key way to do that is looking at the team and finding whether there are folks there that have been there and done that before. I'll give you an example. So we're looking at a home care company right now. It's kind of the Uber of home care, connecting home care providers with families that need it. Turns out that the CEO previously sold, got an acquisition of his company that he founded, made a tremendous profit for his investors in the senior living space. So been there, done that by definition. So he's been there, done that in that industry. He's been there, done that entrepreneurially and getting an exit, and he's learned how to sell.
And he will speak the same language that you guys are speaking then, and understand what the words mean, what the actions are.
Exactly.
Okay, so that makes sense. Can we get into some of what the words mean? So some of our viewers may not know that.
Okay.
So
Sure.
I hear words thrown around all the time, like deal, term sheet, and things, valuation. And I know people look at Dr. Internet a lot.
Yeah.
And so I assume it's the same thing in your world, that people come up with numbers because it said so on the internet. So can you start with the basics on, let's just say somebody's already made a great pitch. You guys decided you'd like to work with them. It's something the Private Access Network is interested in. What's the next step?
Sure. Well, so I'll start off, Jodi. So someone has a meeting with us. They give us a pitch. It could be 5 minutes. Could be 5 hours, and they say, "So what do you think?" And we say, "We're interested." Okay. Well, that doesn't mean we're interested in investing. It means we're interested in pursuing an investment, which might mean 5 or 10 more meetings. Okay. So I don't want entrepreneurs to be confused and go home and say, "Oh, I just secured an investment."
Yeah, here comes my check.
Yeah, no, you secured my interest level such that I want to have more meetings with you because I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued by what you told me. So let's say we have the 5 or 10 more meetings. I talk to some of your customers or check your references or bring in a technical expert to validate your technology. Now I'm going to make you some kind of proposal based on all the other deals I've done. And what I would suggest to entrepreneurs is, let me do my job, right?
Okay.
I kind of find and price companies for a living and help them, shepherded to the goal line with respect to a, financial exit and a return for, him and our investors. Let me kind of work my magic, right?
Okay.
And so what I'll do is I'll put some kind of proposal on the table, which is typically called a term sheet because it says, here are my proposed terms.
Okay.
And I will value your company, the totality of your company, and I will lay out the terms and conditions under which I want to make that investment, which probably includes some kind of interest payment on my money that accrues. You don't have to make it. It just accrues in the background over the length of time that I have this investment. And probably lays out some stock option plans so that you can reward your employees in terms of attracting them to the company as well as keeping them at the company. And there's there's a valuation, there's an options pool, there's an interest rate, and then I may get what's called a preference on my money.
Okay.
This is typically called a preference or a preferred preference, and what that means is in the case of an exit, all of the investors in this series of stock may get a multiple of their money in a priority sense to the other investors.
To the common stockholders.
Yeah, to the common stockholders.
So you guys would be first at the table on both ends.
Essentially in a senior position because we're a fiduciary, we're institutional money, we have a membership that we're absolutely need to put first.
Right.
And so we will offer entrepreneurs a very fair deal, fair to all parties, but at the same time, it'll protect all of our interests. For the things that need to be protected, right?
But it makes sense that you go to the expert where the expert is.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the covenant that we make with our companies is we say, look, we have enough confidence in you that we can potentially only show up once a month for board meetings, and the 99% of the other hours, so we're going to be here for a 2-hour board meeting and then 40 hours times 4 weeks, for 160, and then of course they're working 80 hours. So for 320 hours, you're going to be doing.
Wimps, Randy.
Yes, you're going to be doing whatever you want for 320 hours, and only 2 hours. So now you're up to 322. Only for 2 hours are you going to have to answer to me, and the covenant is, we trust you. That for 320 hours a month, you're going to be making mostly the right decisions. And so we're going to play the role as investor, and you play the role of executive. And if we trust each other, everything should work fine.
That makes a lot of sense. So it sounds like at Private Access Network, you really are looking for a team approach. Each person does what they're expert in and finds people who are expert in their weaknesses. I think that's what they say. The smartest people know their strengths, play to their strengths, and hire somebody who or partner with somebody who can compensate for their weaknesses.
Right.
So we're about to head to our break, and I want to thank you guys for being so candid. I think this is incredibly, incredibly valuable. And once again, for people who need more information, you can go find out more about Scott and Randy at www.privateaccessnetwork.com. You can always find me at www.senior-sherpa.com. And of course, I always tell people, go look at www.alz.org for the Alzheimer's Association. We'll be right back after the break. Thanks.
What's wrong with this picture? Half of young Americans can't locate economic powers like Japan and India. 20% can't even find the Pacific Ocean. Without geography, our children aren't ready for the world. Geography is everywhere. It's incredible creatures, rhythm, fashion, flavor. It's economics and politics. It's change. Understanding connections between people and places is critical in the 21st century. That's why we created mywonderfulworld.org. Go there now for your free parent and teacher action kits and give our kids the power of global knowledge. Because kids who understand our world today can succeed in it tomorrow.
Welcome back to Your Need to Know. I'm your host, Jodi Lyons, and I'm here with my friends from the Private Access Network, Randy Domolky and Scott Schedler, and they've been sharing with us some incredibly good information about investments and deals and term sheets and everything else. And so welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd now love to change the conversation just a little bit and talk a little bit more about the Private Access Network itself, what it does, how people can become involved. So we did the entrepreneur side before the break. Now I'd like to do the investor side. So how about Scott, can you just tell me the real basics about Private Access Network?
Sure. So the Private Access Network is a membership organization. And so Randy and I exist to serve our members.
Okay.
Who include us, by the way. Both Randy and I are paying members of the Private Access Network, and we invest alongside everybody that invests with us. So you can come to the privateaccessnetwork.com and apply to join as one of our accredited investor members to become a full member of the Private Access Network. And once you do that, you get access to see all of our open offerings, as well as how we're doing with the the closed offerings that we had opened in the past, and get a sense that, again, I talked about the Shark Tank earlier. Yep. You get a sense, you can see the story of all the companies that we invested in along the way, and you get to see the open offerings that are available for you to invest in for as little as $5,000 right now.
That's really cool. So you used one term I want to clarify.
Sure.
Accredited investor.
Yeah.
What's that mean?
It means that there's a number of ways that you can qualify as an accredited investor. The kind that are the most typical for our target audience are that you have more than $200,000 in annual income, or $300,000 in annual income as a household with your partner. Or that you have more than $1 million of net worth, excluding the value of your primary residence.
Okay, that's wonderful.
Yep.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment, Jodi. You know, a lot of people have said to us as we talked about forming the Private Access Network and actually formed and got into business, you know, why can't you have a program that appeals to everyone? And this is really, you know, an issue where less is more. Okay? So you want to be in a group that is focused. And we had the choice to kind of choose a legal structure where we could open it up to the whole world. And Scott and I looked at that and said, you know what? We don't think we have a product that's going to be good for everyone. You know, it's going to be good for tens of thousands of people necessarily. We want to offer something that's more curated and focused, because we think focus and curation is what leads to success. And so we chose this legal structure that allows us to actually be more flexible and serve better a smaller group of people, which is these people who are accredited investors as opposed to the whole world.
Okay, so these are the accredited investors, and that makes a lot of sense. So this is a particular group of people, and they then join, they become members of the Private Access Network.
Yes.
You show them things that are open for deals. You show them what they missed out on.
That's correct.
I
wasn't going to say that, but I'm glad you did.
Oh, I have to say, I grin when I get those emails that say, so you think you're missing out on something. And you are. Yep. So they've joined, they see the deals. What else happens?
Well, then they can raise their hand and say, I want to invest in this one. And there's no obligation to invest in any of our deals. Unlike a lot of fund structures where you're required to commit your capital ahead of time before you even know what deals they're investing in, you get to choose on a deal-by-deal basis which of our deals you invest in. And you can rest assured that Randy and I are putting our own money in each deal, and we'll tell you how much we're putting in. So yeah, it's a transparent process. It's flexible. You can determine which deals you want to invest in and how much you want to invest.
And it's as little as $5,000.
As little as $5,000
per deal.
Per deal.
So they could put in $1 million if they wanted to. They could put in $5,000 if they want to.
Yes.
And they're doing that with your guidance.
The upper amount would depend upon the amount that we committed to the company. So if we had committed to over $1 million, then yes, they could in theory invest at least $1 million.
And so you guys, I saw on your website you have newsletters, you have all sorts of other information. Can you tell me a little bit more? I don't know which one of you wants to answer the question, but a little bit more about the resources for investors.
Yeah, well, there's a whole lot there about the purpose of the Private Access Network. So Randy and I, throughout our careers, have lived purpose-driven careers, and we know that the world of financial services is not always savory. So we spend a lot of time actually trying to be as articulate as we can about why we're in this and how we're in this, to distinguish ourselves from a lot of the folks that are out there that are, I would say, wolves in sheep's clothing. Right? So there are a lot of good companies. I'll tell you, Randy's dad and his brother work at Fidelity. They've worked there for a zillion years. My wife works at Atlantic Trust. I used to work at the Motley Fool. We have one of our co-investors is the founder of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which was established to deal with a lot of these wolves, right? So, and in fact, they're the lead investor in one of the companies that we are happy to be invested in. So there are good companies out there, and PAN is committed to being one of those. But I just wanted to talk about purpose for a second.
I would love that. Why are you doing this? Yeah, exactly. The purpose.
Well,
What's the reason?
the very name of our company helps to get at that. So we love investing, and we believe that there are enormous opportunities, particularly in the private side of investing as opposed to public market investing. Second, we think that until now, private equity investing in private companies has been largely unapproachable for the typical accredited investor. So we are trying to give those people access, so private access, and then we know that we are more powerful by all of the connections that we have. And as we build our membership to bigger and bigger numbers, we'll become even more powerful. But we have an extensive network that gives us deal flow and consultants and connections that help us make better choices in terms of which investments we're going to make, because we see more and more deals than the typical investor, and also makes it more likely that the ones we invest in are going to succeed because of the network that's established under PAN.
Which goes back to what you said in the beginning about creating a team and everybody does what they're expert at.
Yeah, Jodi, just to pile on to what Scott said, if this was a car commercial, it would say professional driver on closed course, okay? And the private investing is the same kind of thing. You want a professional driver on a closed course because, you know, there are lots of pitfalls. There are some, unfortunately, some snake oil salesmen out there. And, you know, not just the disingenuousness, but, you know, if you don't have the time to really ask the same question 3 or 4 times over again and compare the answers, not just from one person, but you want to ask the same question to many people many times.
Yes.
And Scott and I have the time to do that because this is our full-time job.
Right.
The same way entrepreneurs are spending 320 hours a month. You know, we're doing the same thing to try to get to the bottom of, you know, do you have an opportunity? Is your team best qualified to exploit that opportunity? And if you do what you say you're going to do we all make money at the end?
Right.
Is someone going to come in and pay a huge premium for this company versus what we all paid? And those are tough questions that you really want professionals to be working on. And so the members in PAN, without having to pay, get access to that and get the benefit of all the hard work and investment prowess that we've built up over, you know, decades.
Right, so your members are really benefiting from your expertise so that they don't have to reinvent the wheel, if that's a fair statement?
Yeah, I mean, this is the same reason the Industrial Revolution happened, that, you know, people figured out that instead of doing everything, they should just do one thing and use the money they make from doing one thing to go buy goods and services in another industry.
That makes sense. So, Scott, if you had some advice to give to an accredited investor who's never invested in this kind of arena before, what would that be?
I would say check us out. So, I mean, if you have any kind of pre-inclination to get invested in this wonderful world of private equity investing in these early stage companies that create enormous value for their investors, but oftentimes for society at large. I mean, it wasn't too long ago there wasn't an Uber.
Right.
Right? It wasn't too long ago there wasn't an Airbnb.
Right.
Right? So these companies are out there and they've created enormous value for their investors. They're not on the public markets yet. So I'd say check us out. So, you know, we've been saying it several times, but certainly you can come to our website, privateaccessnetwork.com. You can get a sense of how we work. You can call us. And as I was saying before, we intend to be one of the good companies. It's part of our DNA. You know, I came from the Motley Fool. We love USAA and Vanguard and these types of companies. So I would say check us out. And you know, there's a lot, and you could check out your alternatives, right? So you know, maybe you know a venture fund, maybe you know an angel group, and I would feel free to compare and contrast what Private Access Network offers relative to them. Okay. In fact, on our website, we actually lay that out. We call it advantages, so it's a little bit immodest, but we call it advantages, and we compare ourselves to the alternatives to what we do.
Can you tell me 1 or 2 things that you do that's different?
Well, I'll start off by saying we put our own money in every deal. And it is so simple, of course, to do. I mean, you need to have a little bit of money to be able to do that, but it's so simple, and it creates such discipline and responsibility and ownership of outcome.
Well, you have skin in the game. Literally, it's your
money. And I would just recommend that to any person in any business. When you walk in the front door, you say, how much stock do you guys all have in this, you know, auto shop or grocery store or hotel? And that's why Airbnb is so successful, because you're renting from the owner every time. Right? And they, you know, they might have some different answers to that question, but I would say, you know, when you're investing in an owner-run, owner-occupied business, you know that the owner is going to do everything they can to make sure that neither you or them are losing their money. And so that is by far and away, in my own mind, the biggest differentiator for us. But Scott can probably add to the list.
Well, yeah, it's we do the work. So if you're in an angel group, you may be assigned to do the homework.
Okay.
So you can join our group, and we'll still do all the work for you. I mean, you're welcome to contribute and ask questions.
Right,
but we're very open and transparent. I'll also say that as part of the benefit of being in PAN, we will give you the Shark Tank experience. We will tell you the story of your business as it goes, and that's not typically the case. The other big difference is the accessibility. The fact that you can invest only in the deals that you like, with whatever amount you like, as long as it's in the multiples of $5,000, and it can be as low as a $5,000 minimum.
That's perfect. It sounds like a great adventure for people to embark on, both entrepreneur side and investor side. So I'm really glad you guys were here, and I really appreciate your expertise. Once again, to find them, you can go to www.privateaccessnetwork.com. You can always find me at www.senior-sherpa.com. And again, my usual plug for the Alzheimer's Association, www.alz.org. Once again, thank you guys for joining us, my friends from the Private Access Network.
Thank you, Jodi.